Journey to Truth is going to Hawaii. Join us in 2026 for Journey to Truth's first ever vacation conference on the Big Island at the beautiful Queen Emma Community Center in Kona. Enjoy Hawaii as we travel to sacred sites and connect with our Lemurian past and reactivate the land. It's time to get our bodies moving and take a boots on the ground approach to the awakening. We'll also be making a trip to Volcano National Park to pay our respect to Pele, the goddess of fire. We'll then journey to the water for an ocean adventure with our multi-dimensional aquatic family. We'll gear up and head to the harbor as we set sail under the sun for an activating day on the water while we experience the Hawaiian ocean life like never before. Enjoy Hawaiian sunsets and walks on the beach while connecting with Soul Family and learning a few things from our amazing lineup of speakers. Aloha! Grab your ticket today at journeytotruth.online and join us for this once-in-a-lifetime activating getaway.
That's no moon. It's a space station.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. One quick announcement before we get started. Don't forget, tickets are available for our Hawaii conference on the Big Island next April 20th through the 24th. And Kara, our guest today, is going to be one of the speakers there. We're very excited to have her with us, and we're going to get into everything she's going to be talking about there and much more today. But if you are interested in joining us, tickets are limited, and all that information can be found at journeytotruth.online. We cannot wait to be there. You know, if you guys want to get out on the water with some dolphins and whales and go to some sacred sites and Volcano National Park and just an amazing lineup of speakers in Hawaii in general, this is an amazing opportunity, and we would love to have you join us. And Kara is actually coming to us today from Hawaii, and we are very excited to have her with us. I met her in LA last year at a conference, and we just stayed connected since then. And Kara has an amazing talk on resonance and interacting in harmony with the universe. And she can better explain and introduce herself and what she's going to talk about today. But we're just happy to have her with us. Welcome to the show, Kara.
Oh, thank you so much, and aloha. We're happy to
Aloha.
join you.
Yes, I forgot. I should have said aloha. So,
Well, you'll get more of that when you come over next year, which, yeah, I'm so looking forward to going back. I live on Kauai, and, I lived on the Big Island for 3 years, but I'm really looking forward to being back there and swimming with dolphins again.
from what I understand, you have swam with dolphins before, and it was very life-changing for you. Maybe you can explain what that was like, because that actually dovetails in with what we're gonna talk about, because the frequency of, the dolphin language, right? It's very healing, and there's a lot there, and they're like five-dimensional beings anyway, so maybe you can explain what that was like.
Yeah, so many amazing experiences. It actually started for me. I was a philosophy major in my undergrad, and my last semester I had I took a course that was taught by a dolphin researcher, and was on animal ethics, philosophy of ethics of how we treat animals, and so just learning that every breath they take is a conscious act, and so many of the other facts about them. I actually I went to Loyola Marymount University, and a Jesuit priest friend that I was friends with sponsored me to take a trip in the Bahamas after I graduated. So we swam with the spotted dolphins in the Atlantic, and I ended up we were out on a catamaran for 7 days, and it took a few days for them to come to us. And when we ended up swimming with them, one of them ended up taking me off for like an hour and a half. I think everyone was back on the boat, and I just had such an amazing experience with this one dolphin. And then I remember afterwards, in like taking a shower, just this like a vision, like it was like vision like memory of them, and like this imprint in my body that was so powerful that I could just feel them for so long afterwards, and the experience of that. So that started my fascination with the dolphins. And then I ended up doing a resonance talk, which is what I showed to you. That was in 2019 with the Resonance Science Foundation, the Sim Harrimane's Physics Foundation, and I've been working with them for a long time, and described in my talk my kind of journey with them. But when I went to the Big Island in 2003 with Nassim, we swam with dolphins, and they were living in South Kona, and I was at a psychic children's conference, which was in Kona at the time, and so again, I just had such a powerful experience, and just the imprint in my being was so powerful. And then I ended up moving to the Big Island in 2006, and living. He had a found his foundation land was up Holualoa, just above Kona, but I ended up living a good amount of time down on South Kona in Captain Cook area, and just going to Kealakekua Bay and Honanao and Ho'okena, and finding them each morning. And one of my most powerful experiences was in it was a really big pot of dolphins in Honanao, and this one dolphin, it had a little kind of like barnacle by his eye, and I don't know even male or female, but we ended up just swimming for so long, just going down and dancing, and then a bunch of other dolphins with him. And then about 2 months later, I was in Kealakekua Bay, and that dolphin found me again and was just so excited to see me, and I was like, "Oh, it's you," and I was just so happy to, have him, come play with me again. And he was with other kind of like little more juveniles. They're kind of maybe, mid-age. I don't, that was a little bit of a younger group, and they all played with me for another hour. And so that kind of, kind of that friendship really, it seems like. And I would get out of the water and I'm like, that is love, when I would just, after swimming with them, it was just so deep and powerful. And so, yeah, for 3 years, sometimes, luckily every day for, times, but around the full moon, usually, just, to be down there and be with them. And then when I was finally deciding to have to move off the island, I got an amazing experience. It was actually the day after I was like, okay, fine, I'm going to have to move off. It was in 2009. It was January 30th, and I was a little bit late going down to Kealakekua Bay. And about a year earlier, there had been some whales off Manini, and I went in, but the water was real dark, and like one of them came up near me, and I got kind of scared, they're just so big. And so then that morning, there was no one in the bay. It was maybe about 9 in the morning. There's just no one swimming or kayaking or anything, and I see this whale out in the bay, close. So I had just seen this Whale Dreamers documentary that my friend had put together, where they said that there's a Aboriginal tribe in Australia that believe that the whales and dolphins are their brothers and sisters, and that they actually escort them to their home planet when they die. As their philosophy. I'm like, oh, we need more of that cosmology over here. So I was like, I just was breathing. I was like, I'm not going to be afraid. I'm gonna just put out so much love. And so I saw the whale, and it looked like they were leaving the bay when I finally kind of got to the middle of the bay. And I was like, oh, well, that's okay. And I decided to clean my mask, and I just put my mask back on, and the baby came up right in front of me and took a breath. And then the mother was in between me and her, and just so close. And so since I was the only one there, I know the mother just brought her baby to me. And it was just one of the most, powerful,
Right.
amazing experiences. And I swam along with them for a couple breaths. And like, how close do you keep to a whale? Because the dolphins would get super close. I'd never touch them, but they would get so close, and get their eye contact. So to have that with a whale, and the telepathy with the baby and the mom, she's just bringing the baby up for every breath. And so, yeah, swam along, and then they went down and left the bay. But in Calico Bay, it's pretty shallow, and white sandy bottom, and it was we were so close, and it was just
Yeah.
one of the most. I felt like I thanked the universe for giving me the present of a lifetime.
Yeah, that's amazing, and I wanna rewind to something very crucial that you said. So, these these people, and I don't remember what you call them, they would escort the dolphins to their home planet when they died. Is that what you said?
Yeah, the Aboriginal tribe, the Whale Dreamers. Yeah, that was their cosmology. Yeah.
So, that's actually crucial, and it's a profound statement to somebody who doesn't know or understand that the dolphins are not from Earth, and they come here from, maybe I don't know, Europa. I mean, who knows what planet, right?
Yeah,
Um,
serious.
Sirius, yeah. So, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, that's pretty profound that, that this group of Aboriginals has that understanding enough to escort the dolphins back to their home planet, and then that would mean that the Aboriginals have a way off the planet as well, if I'm understanding that.
Yeah, I believe it was, when they die. So then that, kind of opens up the whole astral realm of reality, which, I'm studying transpersonal psychology, and a big part of that is near death experiences and even out of body experiences. So, to be able to validate that astral realm. There's actually even a scientist who did a lot of research on children and reincarnation, and found really solid evidence of children remembering their past lives, even having birthmarks where they might have gotten injured in the life that killed them before. And that's my passion, is this transpersonal psychology, the spiritual aspect of life. And so yeah, so that just felt like such a home cosmology, that they would believe that when they pass, that the dolphins, and whales would escort them to their home planet. And I have heard, just in terms of their ability to even come in through well, I don't know, would you say wormholes, or different ways that
World.
they're able to even show up on the planet, show up into the oceans here, and transport themselves, maybe even from their home planet through wormhole connections, which is what Nissim's physics really describes and allows to happen, the Einstein-Rosen bridge and those kind of realities of the field. And so I believe they're just masters of that. And I mean, they're like Buddhas in the ocean anyway. Every breath is a conscious act. They're in the alpha, brain waves mostly. And yeah, I think, and with their, developing in a fluid medium is such a powerful experience as well for their nervous system, to be able to have their, echolocation and all their nervous system functions and their large hearts. And I mean, dolphins are big too. They're bigger than us. I'm 6 feet tall, but they end up being, especially different kinds of dolphins, end up being really big. And then obviously we know how large whales are. So their electromagnetic field and their heart brain connections are so powerful. I love the cetacean nation. I'm a big advocate of them and us connecting with them. So
Right.
yeah,
So
I think we can learn so much.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we could do an entire episode on dolphins alone, and I
Yeah.
agree. I agree with everything you said, and especially the portals. I mean, that's part of one of the big things we're going to be talking about at the conference in Hawaii is, like Lisa and Heidi, who are helping us put it on. They swim with dolphins all the time, and they are. I don't know if they've personally witnessed it, but I know people in their group have witnessed these dolphins basically phase out of reality. And there's a number of testimonies from the people that swim with them all the time. So there's definitely something more going on there. Joan Ocean has an entire story, so we can't wait to get into more of that. But today I want to move into like some of the things that you spoke of in your resonance talk. You kind of led it with, what if Star Wars was a documentary? What if Jedis were real? And you kind of like you built that bridge to help people like get the imagination going and help people understand like this reality, this ether, everything is so much more than what we've ever been taught. We can actually tap into it. So I'll turn it over to you and let you kind of explain like this whole concept of resonance and what it means to you and what you've learned from it.
Yeah. So in my resonance talk was because Nassim's foundation was called the originally Resonance Project Foundation, and then the Resonance Science Foundation, and now he changed his name to the International Space Federation. And so in 2019, that was supposed to be their first annual, and they were taking 6 delegates, people who had been trained to teach Nassim's theory, and then the unified field theory physics, and then 6 of the staff. And so yeah, I was really like one of the first people with Jamie Janover way back when saying, you got to train us to teach this. And so I ended up not really, like Jamie Janover took over, and he just would throughout, festivals, and for years and years, just, taught Nassim's physics through. And the few presentations I did, I was integrating it with heart math, or, the body. That's kind of what is interesting to me, that my transpersonal psychology. And the title of my resonance talk was Mystical Embodiment, and it was Extraordinary Abilities, Biomagnetic Participation, and the Responsibility of Being Human. So that's kind of like what I feel really passionate about, this mystical embodiment that, I do believe Jedi skills are real. And in that my goal is bringing that to the kids. I say Jedi skills to the kids, that I believe our nervous systems as adults, we can still wire new patterns and develop those abilities. But the high neuroplasticity that children have, I just want to help them take advantage of being able to develop these abilities, because yeah, I do believe Jedi skills are real. And it was actually, I went to Contact in the Desert for several years. 2014 was my first year. William Brown, who works with Nassim, is a biophysicist. I mentioned his research in my talk, and he was speaking there, and he ended up getting grounded from a hurricane, so he didn't even make it. So I ended up speaking in his slot in 2014 at Contact in the Desert, and then went many years after that. But I remember hearing it was there that, what if, Star Wars is actually a documentary? And I was like, I believe it. I mean, I mean, we, our yeah, I think humanity's missing the basics. I think, the fact that we don't even understand our connection to our galactic family, and that, in an infinite field of, so much time that would have, come before our, time right now, that of course there's, I'm sure, so many different races and beings and civilizations developed, and how many trillions of galaxies just in our universe alone, so it's just so vast, and for us to be wondering if we're the only life on in the universe is just such a crazy, sad, ignorance that humanity has. I think that's breaking through, but I really am passionate about the disclosure movement for that, for us to connect to our space neighbors, and understand, how this kind of a larger spiritual war, that I believe that, the Bible could be seen as a exopolitical document, and that there is a larger war of good and evil, and how I think humanity is so special. Actually, actually William had found, because he was studying DNA, and he found that there was an alteration in our human DNA that wasn't just from evolution from primates, and that to have uh, biped stature and our glandular system, we're tall antennas, we're bipeds without wings, and that there was an enhancement in our DNA to allow Homo sapiens sapiens to be so special. And I think that's partly why we have been sort of kept in the dark about our abilities, because our heart field, our biomagnetic participation can be really powerful. I think, Jedi skills and beyond, that kind of what the whales and dolphins are able to do. I think our body temple instruments would be able to, be developed to have that kind of ability, and that's, I think, where we're going. And I think we've been held back because we're so powerful.
Wow. I cannot wait for your talk in Hawaii.
Oh,
That
yeah.
That was incredible.
yeah, I
I
mean,
say a lot in my residence talk. It was 29 minutes, and I was supposed to be 18. It was kind of hard for me to prepare that. And Elizabeth Rauscher had just passed, so I gave a tribute to her, and I recited some Hafiz poems, which is my hobby. And then right when I got to like the water part, I saw that I was getting flagged to wrap it up, and so I was kind of trying to wrap it up there. But it ended up being 29 minutes. But I shared quite a bit, and went into kind of some deep stuff, because I figured like this is my chance to get some truth out there and what I'm passionate about, but then integrating it with the nervous system and our psychic abilities. That's what I'm studying in my PhD.
right, right. So you mentioned in that talk also being able to measure the frequencies of the atmosphere all the way down, like the layers of our atmosphere, all the way down to within the planet, and predicting like volcanoes and earthquakes hours before they happen. Have you done any more research into that and how that's actually possible? What's going on there?
That actually was Elizabeth Rauscher's research, and
Okay.
she was just an amazing scientist. She was in NASA in the '60s as a female physicist, and so I have actually two friends, and she passed. She passed just a month before the talk that I gave in 2019, and she worked with Nassim for years, and I have two really dear friends that are continuing, that have a lot of her research. One that was with her when she passed, and so they're going to be bringing out her research. I mean, she had quite a few papers published, but there's a lot that didn't get published. But she was actually responsible for HARP back when, her technology, and also HeartMath uses a biofeedback. They have a biofeedback technology so that you can see when you're in heart coherence, when you're in positive emotions, and the change that happens in your nervous system. And because when you feel positive emotions, it's called heart coherence, and there's a harmonious synchronization that happens in your body subsystems to a 1 hertz frequency that is super healthy for the body. We would understand that being in feeling those positive emotions are really powerful. And so her external pacemaker technology was what they used to make that biofeedback that HeartMath uses. So yeah, so again, my friends had just kind of helped me understand more of what she had done. But I'm mostly using now her papers on pre-sentiment. She did a lot of precognition. She had some pretty amazing ways to link that to the physics as well. And so yeah, her research, needs to be put out there more, which they're working on. But
Right.
she was the one that, Nassim convinced of his theory, and then she wrote the mathematics in Einstein's field equations. They created a solution to Einstein field equations that is the source of spin, and so that's called the Haramain-Rauscher metric. It's a topology of it's actually a dual torus with infinite density at the center, two counter-rotating vortices. And so she actually wrote the math with all the fluid dynamics in Einstein's field equations of a black hole with its Hairs cone is what it's called, because the information is never unbroken. So it ends up being a feedback, feed forward topology. And in that, it allows for the system to learn because the information is going in and coming out change. And so that source of spin is at all scales. Is no, Sim's theory. And so, once they found the black holes at the center of the galaxies, and then he brought it down to the atom, the proton being a mini black hole is called
Right.
Schwarzschild proton. And so that's that scale infinitely embedded in all things, and that we're made up of all atoms, and so then our heart singularity is our largest access to that, because the implication is that if it's all space time spinning, and the center of that spin is the whole field itself, infinite density, all access. We have that access at every cell, but I believe our heart is our largest singularity, and that there's the sinoatrial node in the heart in the right atrium, which is why the heart's offset. So that's right in the center, the right atrium, and it measures this gigantic electromagnetic field of the body. Like when you measure it with a magnetometer, it's maybe it goes 3 feet out because that's the limit of the magnetometer, but it's infinite. But if you put that magnetometer up to the brain, it's like 1 inch away. So it's and so so that's part of what I'm really interested in my research is I'm actually studying magnetoreception, our sensing of magnetic fields, so that I could bring this understanding of the heart field, and our that we're sending out information, and that we sense, like we can tell animals sense your field, that and our technology is using magnetic waves to go through walls, that obviously that we have an information encoding, and that's what Nassim, his new paper, his new equations, he said that I could use those to make an argument that the heart field's encoding information, and that's kind of my basis of making headway into how we could have psychic abilities and precognition and sense things before we reach those coordinates, and all those implications.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot. You're very well researched on this subject, and I love that because, you talk about this dual torus, right? And like this, the science of spin and all that stuff. And it reminds me of one of the conversations we had at that conference. I don't know if you were trying to vet me to see if I was a flat earther or not, but but we immediately started talking about that, and you were explaining how, like, the Earth couldn't possibly be flat based on the science of the spin and that toroid and stuff. And maybe you can explain that a little more to the audience because that is one of the biggest, like I would say, psyops, disinformation psyops that's being pushed right now. And I don't like to dwell on it because I know it's like we don't want to feed that, but I also want to help people that are confused understand like why this it can't really be possible.
Yeah, I mean, that's the question I would ask, the flat earth, what's your source of spin in your flat earth world? Like, what are all the atoms that are making up the physical world? What are they doing? And yeah, so yeah, the fact that it's spherical because it is, that that um, you know, double torus with infinity, at the center, and that's a source of spin of all things. And obviously, the
Mhm.
big stuff is made out of the small stuff, and that's Nissim's unified field theories, trying to unify the fact that quantum theory isn't bridging with the relativistic, field equations of the larger objects of the world. And so, yeah, so he's come a long ways, and even um, recently they do like a question answer, and William Brown has been a good friend for a long time, and his research really is incredible. And they actually went and presented, I think in June at a water science conference in Japan. And so then their new paper is going to be published in their proceedings. And in the recent talk that's on, so the International Space Federation is their YouTube. They have these talks now, and his recent question and answer that just happened is in there, and it was just so exciting to me because they're being able to really break down the mechanism and the science about how water is the interface with the field, and then the source of life. Not that life can come in other fluid mediums, but the water is really the tetrahedral structure is really it's able to be this coherent mechanism that the super fluid of the plasma field of the universe is able to then keep its coherence and have the structure then to build, the atoms into the molecules and into the material world. So, um, so William's paper and what Nassim is doing, his recent paper is the origin of mass and the nature of gravity. So he's really, gone a long ways in bringing this theory forward, which is what I'm excited about because then I can, use that as a way to make a rigorous argument for how we have this biomagnetic participation about how our hearts are encoding information and how we sense that in other people,
Right.
whether it's locally or non-locally.
Right.
And so yeah, so that fact that everything is spherical all the way down. That the other thing I mentioned in my talk was the scaling law that Nassim and Elizabeth put together, which I think is really powerful. And he actually now has a generalized scaling law, but their original scaling law, they were just taking the radius of objects and then the frequency of the hertz is the other axis. So they took, they plotted the universe as large as we know that it is, and then galactic clusters and galaxies and solar systems, and then down to the atom and the Planck. The Planck is the smallest length for a photon to pass through itself. So it's super, super small down there, the Planck length. And um, and so on that scaling law, you can see that the distance between the Planck and the atom is actually larger than the distance between the atom and the sun. And I point that out because for us to even conceive of how large the solar system mass size is to the how tiny the atom is, that the Planck is actually that much even more small, in scale down there, and that's what we're made up of. And it really doesn't stop. His generalized scaling law, he found the sub-Planck is actually the whole scale from the universe. It's even a whole universe scale smaller.
Right.
So, for us to understand this infinite universe, infinity and finite boundaries is how life emerges. And it's almost like we can't even conceive that
Right.
infinitive, eternal alpha and omega, no beginning, no end. And yet, we're made up of that. One of the quotes that I use in my talk is from Paramahansa, and he says, "The beginning and end of all created things are hidden in the depths of the infinite. Only the middle is visible." So the beginning and end of all created things are hidden in the depths of the infinite. Semicolon. Only the middle is visible. So that
Right. That
of course, you'd only
yeah.
have that ever new now. Only in an infinite system, you'd only have that ever new middle
Right.
available. And yet
Which
we're traveling so fast. We're spinning and we're following. In our galaxy, so we're moving. Fast through space time. And I love Nassim's theory because you can then visualize that we've been imprinting space time with all of our information as we've moved, and so we're connected to that spiral of information that's in the field, the space memory field. Nassim has a paper, the Akashic records, you could see, and we're connected to that spiral, and then we're being fed forward into the new space-time coordinates that we're moving into, and that's all recorded in the space memory field, and that's how you could even go back, even it links to memory, and that, memories aren't stored in our brain, but there are frequency dialing up that information set from the field when we, want to recall that.
right.
And William Brown really explains that too in terms of how the physics is allowing that.
Yeah. Wow, there's so much there you're saying, I can't even keep up.
Yeah.
Uh, so, yeah, you're talking like the only in the middle is visible or observable, which is like, quantum mechanics, single position. It's like whenever it's that wave function, and then you try to observe it, but you can only observe the middle. Like, and I guess the way that the many worlds interpretation explains that all of the rest of it is being observed in other parallel realities. But like only being able to observe the middle reminds me of the single position, the way it's explained in quantum physics. So I just found that interesting. But also, do you think you were a quantum physicist in one of your past lives? Because you had to have been.
I don't know. I don't know. I just, well, I had a spiritual teacher when I was young who taught, that life is energy, our thoughts and emotions are energy. Brown Landon's work, The Life and Teaching of the Masters of the Far East. So, and then Paramahansa Yogananda had all that, the reality of what the yogis could do, what the masters could do. And so when I learned this in physics, I was like, oh, this is what all the mystics are talking about. This is the mechanics of how, the universe is functioning. Space time is creating reality. And I really like again that you can kind of visualize it because like the topic of presentiment or precognition. I actually when I was getting Dean Radin she was my internal committee member, and when I was presenting my dissertation idea, the one question he asked was, how do your ideas account for presentiment? And so that and heart math, I see in my talk about the research that they did where they were showing emotionally charged pictures to people, and the heart was registering the emotion that they were gonna experience when they saw the picture up to 6 seconds before, and it was a random computer, so it wasn't even like that was even aware to them, but the body knew that, and so the idea that all of our information is being fed forward into the next space-time coordinate. Again, only the middle is visible. There's only the ever new now. And yet there's an imprint of the past and there's a trajectory into the future of where this information is going. And so that I believe and then we have access to all information. That's the implications of the source of spin, that, everything is centered by the whole field itself. And the sim showed that in the center of the atom, there's more mass still than he said trash compacted all the material in the universe into a tiny, tiny, space. There's
Right.
still more mass at the center of the atom. And so that the fact that then, that implication is that there's all access to information, that everything is space-time spinning, and the center is the whole field. It's the all at onceness. It's all there. And as in a sense says, reality is real half the time. The other half of the time, all your information is being fed into the field and feeding back to you, so that you can that you can identify yourself as the whole field half of the time, and then the other half is the information set that makes up your body or your astral
Right.
body,
Right.
so that ability to then connect to that's why I think the heart singularity is so important, because if that's our largest access to information, then that would explain that how we would have that telepathy, that how our body would already have the information of the space-time coordinate trajectory that we're going into, to have precognition, or to have the transfer of information that we can have with telepathy and presentiment and even mind matter interactions, to be able to understand that our body has an electromagnetic field that influences the physical world around us.
Right. Aaron, did you have anything to say to all this right now?
I
Before
mean, there's there's a lot to say to that. I mean, you're spot on. Yeah, everything. This is you've gone a lot deeper into this stuff than I have, but I researched this stuff as well, and you're spot on. And I'm a huge fan of Nassim Haramein as well, and Dean Radin. I have a few of his books, and Greg Braden, Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton. All these people talk about this stuff, and it's very true. It's like and like the holographic universe. I don't know if you've read that book by Michael Talbot. It's like one of my favorite books. And it's like the entire universe is within. And that's what it all comes down to.
Yeah,
What you
yeah.
realize is that what we perceive as reality is simply just an experience, and it's a holographic projection is a good way to put it. And really, it's not happening out there; it's happening inside of you, because there is no out there. That's what you realize. There really ultimately is no out there. It's just a projection, and it's an experience, and it's a manifestation, you could also say. So ultimately, that's the law of one. Like we hear, we're all one, everything is one. Well, that's kind of like the highest truth, because that's like God or source or whatever you want to call it. The field of infinite energy that makes up everything is a singularity. It is just oneness.
right.
So
Yeah.
so the whole concept of space and time has to be a manifestation from, like, that comes before space and time. So that
That one
means
mind, yeah.
we are just a manifestation, right? And but we're all that same consciousness. We're all picking up on that same field, and it's just
We're made of I mean,
expressing
it's
in a
all
different.
right? We're made of it. It's all space-time spinning. We're made of
Right,
it. Yeah.
right,
Yeah,
right.
they say everyone you meet contains the whole of space and time. Like, it's just within all of us, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's
every
we can even visualize that. Like, again, that we're, every cell is made up of how many trillions atoms, every, atom is made up of how many trillion Planck spheres, even lower, right? So, and
Mhm.
then, so we have it within our boundary, and then there's an infinite, field outside, like Nassim's generalized scaling law. He can say the size of the multiverse that we're in. So again, it's just, infinite in that scale. And I think that, being able to then just sort of have the privilege of being tapped into it in a human form is really special because of our access to that. And again, that whole Nissim calls it the holofractal graphic. So it's holographic because all information is available in the center, and that's fractal because it's the same dynamic at all
Mhm.
scales.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and kind of just to piggyback off what you were saying, Aaron, something I've read about, they used to try and explain, um, consciousness with mathematics, but they came to the conclusion that mathematics can't explain consciousness because consciousness allows mathematics to even exist. So it's
Anything to
yeah,
exist.
for
Right.
to
It comes before everything.
but that's like one of the big revelations that some of these physicists are having or had,
Right.
and it seems so simple now to talk about it, but it took men and women a long time to come to that conclusion that it's consciousness that's actually making our mathematics even possible and everything possible. So it's really interesting to think of that way. So that's why mainstream science doesn't necessarily work anymore with where we're moving, into.
Right, and then they found out that consciousness affects everything based on whether you perceive it or not, like the double slit experiment,
Right,
or like, oh, if you perceive it, it like the photons or the particles just go through the slits, but if you don't, it shows up as a wave pattern
right,
because all possibilities, infinite possibilities, are always
right,
exist. But you didn't observe it, so it didn't lock into one.
right,
And it's like that gives you a clue on how our reality works. It's like
right. So,
you
I
lock
w
in one possibility, but all
right.
possibilities.
Kara, I wanna ask you, you talking about disclosure and being an advocate for that, you just, like, understanding our galactic heritage and where we came from. Have you had any interactions or experiences with extraterrestrials yourself or higher dimensional beings?
not consciously that I know of. I definitely heard quite a few stories that Nassim told that were really incredible, and the most I've had is just the seeing of the ships. Um, one time it actually it was 2017 here. I looked up in the sky and I saw a triangle, and I was like, I don't remember a triangle in the sky. And it ended up being two ships moving that just happened to be in line with one other star. And then James Gilliland's a good friend, and I was up at his City Ranch at one point. No, it was his birthday, and he sort of brought to me the idea of powering up. When we
Right,
telepathically ask them for acknowledgement, and they power up their ship, and it turns into a big bright sphere. And so one
Oh,
experience
yeah.
I had a really special wolf dog, White Sage, and my dad had actually passed 2 years before that, and it was the 1 year anniversary of her death, and I was out walking in the evening, and there was the planets up, Jupiter and Venus, and I see this ship moving across the sky, and it was it's just so clear that it was, and I just felt I was in a really deep kind of prayerful state because of the anniversary and connecting with them and the ether, and I sent love and gratitude to the ship, and it was sort of like this like moments of time where I had sent gratitude, and the ship powered up. It was and I didn't even think it. I didn't ask them to do it or anything. I was like, oh wow, that was so special. I might have been the only person on the island seeing it. And then it went behind a cloud and went further, and I was like, oh, I was excited, and I was real happy at that point, and I sent love and gratitude again, and it was sort of like the same sort of period of time, and they powered up again for me. So that was just really special in terms of sort of my telepathic interaction with them. But otherwise, that's kind of like I've just seen the ships in the sky and stuff, which are spectacular as well. But no, I haven't had any experience with beings.
right. Alright, so spending so much time in Hawaii, is there any lore of Hawaii being once part of Lemuria? And are you familiar with that concept?
Yeah, I have heard that, for sure. Even, there's sort of I'm not sure how true it is, but they said that the Dalai Lama was talking about two of the places on Kauai where this mountain range, Kalalea, where the souls enter the planet, and Holy Holly, where they exit the planet. And what's special too about the Hawaiian Islands is just in terms of like Nassim does a lot with the geometry of and vector equilibrium and geometry, and even like the implosion of the icosahedron and explosion of the dodecahedron, like kind of that the geometry is sort of like a static view of these fluid dynamics. But when you put two tetrahedrons in the sphere, like the Star of David, the ends of the tetrahedron, and if you visualize that spinning, they hit the planet at 19.47, which is where a lot of the sacred sites and pyramids are. But Hawaii, Big Island right now is at that 19.47, really like Manini Point there at Kealakekua. And so So that, and like that's where the red spot of Jupiter is. So if you visualize that spinning dynamic, that would be where the axis of the plasma, the lava would be coming up. So and we're so these mountains are so special. We're on the very tippy top of this gigantic mountain that goes 14,000 feet under, and is coming out of the seafloor, right? And all of the mountains of these islands have come. So I think Kauai was the first over that vortex, formed, and then all the other islands have formed, and that's where the Big Island is now, and it's forming a new island in the south of it. So it's and then and the craters going off again, the lava coming out,
Yeah,
and
I
that.
saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. So so I believe it's kind of and not only a portal of physical, spin and lava, but I believe it's also an information portal that makes the island sort of more potent, like where Pele has this lure that, she'll kick you off or she'll bring you here, that and I kind of see it as like more of an instant karma generator because you were processing more information here at this portal of 19.47. And that, then it kind of is like a, yeah, instant karma generator, more acceleration of your lessons, universal 2x4 you might feel when you're, getting your lessons and your karma, and yet, held by the consciousness of that. And so, yeah, I believe, I think that Nassim had some really incredible experiences with some kahunas who talked to him about his whole theory as well. And they have the same cosmology. And I believe they're, they're opening up to share that a little bit more, and even their connection with the cetacean nation and the sharks, and their connection to the earth and the all the deities and the nature spirits, and so they have all that in their cosmology. So I mean, I've heard that Lemuria was the Mu, that it was this, that it was actually, that I heard that Kauai, the Garden Isle, was actually the one island that was formed during that time. So that if it was anywhere, it would have probably been based on this island, which I think is why this island feels so magical in some ways. I mean, the
Right.
Big Island is too. But it's more that raw, new life forming energy as well.
Right, and if you look at a topographical map, you can actually see an island chain that connects Hawaii to Easter Island, but it's sunken. But it's there. It's a whole, and that's like talked about in the ancient secret of the flower of life, Drunvalo Melchizedek, and stuff like that. But um, they say that Lemuria was there, but it was a whole island chain at one point, and then it eventually sank, and allegedly that some of the most significant ruins are still there underwater. If anyone was to go dive down there with a submarine and explore that sunken island chains. So you called your talk or what did you call it? Mystic embodiment, the bridge of
Yeah,
the
mystical embodiment, and then extraordinary abilities, biomagnetic participation, and the responsibility of being human. Um, yeah.
Yeah, so the responsibility of being human, let's get into that because I think that's actually important right now with people waking up and like tapping in. Well, first of all, understanding like their role here, right? And then like once you're aware of all this stuff, like what is your responsibility and how do you move forward to understanding like, okay, I'm here to do something.
Yeah, well, I even think even kind of more basically than that, that once you're in a body with all this information that's feeding into the morphogenic field and affecting everything else, that you can't not participate, right? And so I see a quote that my teacher had us memorize, that by Sir Arthur Eddington, that even the course of the world is not predetermined by physical laws, but may be altered by the caused or uncaused volition of human beings. So that will, that volition of ours, where we affect the field, where our biomagnetic participation is influencing matter. And so in that way, that you are affecting the whole field and the morphogenic field of the planet and beyond. And also, again, the special nature of humans. Again, as tall antennas with our glandular systems and the abilities that our body, can develop into our capacities. That we have a responsibility to be coherent, really, and that I read a quote once, that we have a duty to be happy because we bestow 1,000 blessings on the world or something like that. But that there is kind of that, and it's self-serving as well, because karma's kind of become second language for us, that understanding that of cause and effect, that what you put out comes back. And of course we have our ancestral karma that's in our DNA, just the information of our bodies have, a certain impact that we take on. But then our soul frequency that comes in through the heart, I believe, the optic nerve drops down to the behind the heart region. And again, I think that's why we say the eyes are the window of the soul, and the photons that are coming out, we're exchanging photons with each other. And like I said, even, in direct location, your organ functions and resonance can influence my organ functions and resonance. And then there's a non-local effect as well, telepathy over, space and time that isn't even limited to that. But those are, that responsibility to have a coherent body. And I became a resilient educator trainer for HeartMath back in 2009, and Roland McCrady's my external committee member, because I think the neurocardiology and the understanding of the heart is so important, because it's such a large magnetic field and encoding so much information. And that understanding of heart coherence, which we touched on earlier, of feeling positive emotions and gratitude and appreciation, that it harmonizes your nervous system and then sends out those more coherent waves into the field to benefit others. I think prayer is a superpower, and a psychic ability, really, in that way, because we're, like I said, we're molding the course of the world by our.
Right.
And then even then, so then that soul frequency of, I love that the movie Avatar in that way, that they're, that idea that you could be inhabiting a body, right? A consciousness inhabiting the body that maybe isn't the body itself. And that where soul is having a human experience. I definitely believe that. I believe in reincarnation. And so that soul frequency, like, in some ways, like, I mentioned in my talk about free will, one of the monks of the self-realization fellowships that asked, do I have free will? And he said, of course I have free will. I have no choice. That you can't not participate, that we're making meaning all the time, that how we make meaning sometimes is unconscious. And, sometimes obviously then we can use it more consciously, but sometimes it's just like neuroception in our body is sensing safety in the, with others, and social, situations that is activating our body even before we're consciously aware of it. So we have, these kind of ways we make meaning that are, sending biochemical influences, energetic influences, and then, that affects our functioning in the field. And so, and again, humans being so special, I think a soul coming into a human body. And so it's in terms of like free will also, I believe our choices, have an impact. And then, like I said, our biology and all our nervous system patterns that we've developed since we're, infants, that are feeding forward, as well as our kind of, DNA and ancestral karma that's feeding forward, like all that influences our trajectory. And yet I feel like with the heart singularity, that there's a frequency of our soul that I think is such a powerful resonance, that it might be what we would see as sort of destiny, that there's this frequency pulling in our experiences, that is more powerful maybe than our, conscious choices, that could, like, even override sort of maybe mistakes that we make or karma that we have. And that there's like a soul, sort of contract, or a soul design to our lives that is leading us into that place for ourselves. So I think the more we can consciously connect to what our passion is and what we want to do in the world, then that soul frequency can more easily align the experiences of life and the people to be brought to us. Because it's no small thing to even be in person with someone, and in this, universal, eternal cosmic time, to be able to even have the universe manifest two people in the same space-time coordinates is no small thing. I've sort of, grew up paying attention to those signs, synchronicities, and the things that we can become aware of, with how life does bring us our heart's desires, and how, what we put out is manifest in this, amazing,
Right.
orchestration of the cosmic play.
I love that you're, like, transcending into your light body right before our eyes right now.
Oh, right, the sun coming in, right?
You're, like, glowing. Yeah.
And I don't know
Yeah.
if there are insects
Is it
flying
blanking out
around.
my face a little bit? Should I?
No, it's
Oh.
perfect.
No.
I don't know if there are
Yeah.
insects flying around, or they're little orbs or something over there, but
Oh, it's probably some dust.
well, I don't know, some of it looks very interesting, but, it was just so symbolic, like, you're explaining the soul, the frequency of the soul, all of a sudden
The
this
heart,
light,
and the
yeah,
sun's
no,
coming in.
and he
Yeah,
just,
you're
yeah,
just like
um
That's
So
awesome.
that's beautiful, and I absolutely agree that we all like our frequency alone, like can affect, like you said, the frequency of our organs can affect like somebody else's organs, and obviously the powers that be know that or knew that, and that's part of why the whole COVID thing happened and like this shedding aspect of what like they were trying to weaponize it, but we understand that it's real and that stuff actually does like our frequency does impact our surroundings. Whenever you do work on yourself, that's the best thing you can do for the planet and everyone that and yourself. So I love that you explained that so beautifully. And I remember what I was going to say earlier. You were talking about this 19.47. Can you explain that a little better for me? Because that number
Well,
in particular, I have a theory. But go ahead.
yeah, so that's that latitude above and below the equator. That the geometry of two tetrahedrons inverted in a sphere line up there at the spherical latitude above and below the equator. So it being like the information portal to the planet, like again where the red spot of Jupiter is,
Right.
that this fit in.
Well, is immediately when you said that, like, I thought of 1947 and Roswell, but if you like, I'm a big,
Oh, yeah.
researcher in ufology and all that history, and, like, virtually, like, everything kinda blew up after 1947, and I don't think those UFO crashes were an accident, actually, and I almost wonder, like, everything is, like, kind of it's, like, divinely orchestrated, right? So, like, using that number is literally, like, connecting with that frequency or whatever you're talking about to bring information into the planet in that specific year, like, to literally, like, create this wave, and we see where that has taken us now. I don't know, it's just kinda where my mind went when you said that, I'm, like, connecting those dots. Maybe there's no connection, maybe there is, I don't know.
Well, I never connected it, but I mean, numbers are function, they are powerful. And so, yeah, so I mean, just the fact that they're the same numbers is potent.
Right,
But otherwise, and so, yeah, as far as the timing of some of the UFO anomalies on the planet, yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I think that um like we were speaking about just the ET contact that our government has had. A lot of that I've been friends with Laura Eisenhower for a long time too, um and just heard that over the years. And my teacher, my spiritual teacher, she spoke about and this was she was psychic. She actually believed she was Madame Blavatsky in her previous life, who was the Russian mystic, and she was like my grandmother. Maxine Cardinal is her name, and so she spoke about the Illuminati and the Bilderbergers, and even about like in Council of Nicaea, how they took the teachings of reincarnation out of the Bible. Some of the fascinating stuff. Even Greg Braden talks about like the Ethiopian Bible and these other texts that have come out that have more truth and even our connection to our space neighbors. I was good friends with Bon Benjamin, who's the lead singer of Midnight and Akabeka, and he is roots reggae, but he was definitely Rastafarian, definitely into that the Old Testament and even the Ark being in Ethiopia and some of that history. So I think a lot of it is coming out, but we need more. We need more of it coming out for sure because again, I think it would be liberating to humanity, even in terms of our focus of our power. That we are so much more powerful than we've been able to develop, and then to honor the youth of the children coming in and their soul frequencies and their destinies. And I really think that having that larger awareness of the galactic field, and that's what I also love about the physics, the unified field theory, and that kind of ability to visualize this infinitely embedded structure. Vaughn has a line, and I actually got in the Sims DVD to Vaughn back in 2007, his DVD set. And he said, "Me and that physicist are talking about the same thing." And he had everyone in his village in St. Croix watched the DVD because everyone needed to understand the physics. And one of his lines, he says, "The point of eternity, forever going out and contracting in." And so that those kind of those implications of understanding this eternal dynamic of creation and access as being like the universe inside, and the holographic nature of our access to that, and then our influence on that. And that's that responsibility of being human.
yeah.
And I also just the gift of being human. Like, humans are so special. And I also think that, with coherent technologies, we could end up living 800 years in these bodies. Like, there's some of like the Bible stories of that. If the water in our cells stays coherent, those kind of technologies, I think, can be can it will be able to help us sort of overcome some of the the toxins and the even the EMF frequencies that are so bio unfriendly. Hopefully we're going to be able to make them more bio friendly to
Right.
just help out the planet in that way. Because humans we've kind of made a mess of the planet. We need to clean it up, and I think we're going to have help with that. And yet we need to evolve our consciousness.
Mhm.
And that's what I think is so important about this truth, to be able to sort of base ourselves in our connection to the source and how powerful we are.
Right. Yeah, and I absolutely agree, especially if you really look at how we are being targeted. It's all through frequency warfare. And that's because it's so potent, it's so important. It's like everything. That resonance is literally how you live in or interact in harmony with the universe, like you said. So if they can disrupt that, and then stop us from healing and cause us to have shorter lifespans or whatever that looks like, obviously that's cutting us off from that our true potential, and that's what we're trying to that's what I believe even you going on this mission or going down this path is doing for the collective, is helping us remember that we need to take that back, right? And like live in coherence and like protect ourselves from this as we move forward, because it is a war, like you said. It's very much a war. As much as some people don't want to admit that or understand that, I mean, we have to realize that this isn't just about disclosure. It's about overcoming this darkness and then like literally resonating at a frequency to where this technology can't even affect us, right? And then like like basically like what Laura Eisenhower calls the override frequency. Like literally become that override frequency that dismantles that false matrix, and then we can move into whatever that looks like for humanity on this planet, and then evolve into something much more beautiful that we were always intended to be, right?
Yeah, exactly. I so agree with that. And I believe humans are so much, I believe, like, especially us, even in the astral realm, like the power of being embodied and being able to affect, beings that are in the astral beings that aren't incarnated. Humans are so powerful. I believe in that. And so, again, our power of prayer, our power of, even visualizing, making meaning in terms of calling in light, surrounding ourselves with light, those skills, calling in the higher beings. Like, there's stories of people near death experience who have go into very dark experiences and then call the name Jesus, and then, the beings dissipate. And so I really, the power of, like, I actually just listened to James Gilland the talk, and he a podcast he just did with Michael Sala on the big island there. And so yeah, he was just talking about that power, like, that you just call in those high beings, call in Babaji, call in those, ascended masters. And I love, in that sense with Christianity, about understanding, the ability to call in on Jesus. And Paramahansa he actually did an amazing commentary on both the Bhagavad Gita and on the New Testament and Jesus's teachings. And so, his altar has, honors Jesus and Krishna, and then his master's lineage of Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Shri Yukteswar, and Babaji being kind of the father of the yogis, and just, in it the long haul, helping us all the time.
Right.
Even they, perhaps Jesus' lost years were him going to study with Babaji. I had heard, and in that time. So, yeah, so I think we have so much help in to be able to, connect our hearts and our meaning to those, that assistance that we have, even our guides and our angels, archangels, and things like that. I think those prayers are really powerful, just because it raises our frequency, but it does call in that assistance that we do have. I mean,
Right. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
beautiful, and I agree. I've done that many times, called upon Jesus, and whenever my awakening started through adversity, right? I was being attacked, and I eventually that through that darkness, I found the light, and it's this whole journey. But I understood ultimately, like invoking the name of Jesus, it's like that name holds power, but it's a frequency that it carries. I've come to the conclusion it's the frequency that's encoded into that name that literally they can't, it like resonates at such a high frequency that any darkness or demon can't even exist in its presence, right? So I think that's what's happening, still goes back to frequency. And
yeah, coherence. I mean, in that
yeah,
sense, like coherence, a coherent system can dissipate an incoherent system, a disharmony, so much more powerfully than a dissonant, frequency would be able not be able to disrupt a coherent frequency. And that's actually kind of where William and Nassim are going in their figuring out how the space time field is interacting with water to have that coherence in order to even manifest the physical world. So those details are so exciting to me about, technologically, like how is that happening in our bodies? And then how can we make meaning so that we amplify that love, you know,
Right.
and that
So where does something like the Akashic records come into play here? Because that's like apparently tapping into the ether. You know, it's like this library that's out there, just existing all around us, right? Is this something that you've explored as well?
Well, I think, that's, ether was taken out of, um, Einstein's field equation. Like, he first had it, then he took it out, and then he regretted it and tried to put it back in. Tesla talked about the superluminous ether, this 5th element, super, so in terms of thinking about the space-time field, that we're all space-time spinning, like, the actual dynamics of that, like, they're now fleshing out, that it is through this coherence of resonance and spin, and the fact that there is entropy, but William talks about in this recent paper of this negentropy converter, that how the field is feeding this coherence, so that the entropy that would naturally happen in a system is blocked, is converted into coherence to continue the system's form in that information set that it's in. And so I think that that link with, that, like I said, even that we're traveling through space, right? And that we're imprinting, all of our DNA has been imprinting the field that we just passed through. And that's kind of like, even psychology, kind of, when we go back into our past and we take a different perspective, then we're changing that in the field itself, and then can have, instantaneous, changes in our body from that. That's actually one thing I think about, like, with Joe Dispenza, Aaron mentioned, about, like, people that go in with a wheelchair, and then they have this experience of meditating on the oneness, and the field, and being able to, come out of that. There's a poem by Rumi that I memorized, one of the only poems by Rumi, but one of the stanzas is, "When you lose all sense of self, the bonds of 1,000 chains will vanish. Lose yourself completely, return to the root of your own soul." So when you lose all sense of self, the bonds of 1,000 chains will vanish. I kind of see that with, like, in Joe Dispenza, like, when you can have like a coherent understanding of yourself that is beyond, the limitations of, what we've been taught for our personalities to understand, then the bonds of 1,000 chains, like, all those nervous system patterns that were laid in, can just be resonated into a totally new phase, and someone could get out of a wheelchair in that way. So
Right.
I think the power of that kind of cathartic meaning making, it then changes our nervous system patterns that are feeding forward. And so in the Akashic field, again, it's, we're made up of the field, infinitely embedded spinning, in our boundary, and then we're imprinting the space-time field, and we're being fed forward into the new. And I believe that Nassim has a paper, the space memory field, and so who are we without memory? It's in terms of space time, time is the imprinting of that information, so that it's in the field in terms of that memory structure. So that's how I kind of see the Akashic field, as the field itself that has been imprinted by the, information sets of the coherent spin, amidst a kind of a superfluid plasma that, isn't, formed into that coherent way of a structure, but it is the background sort of fluid that, because Nassim talked about, like, when you look at those, in the galaxies, those, like, jets of light years long of stars being pulled, and and that it's like the molasses has already been stirred, like, so in the galactic soup molasses, the molasses is already stirred, and then the stars are just getting stuck in that vortex. Like, you use the example of coffee, like, if it's spinning black coffee, not until you pour the milk into it that you see the spin, right? Because it's getting caught in that vortex, right? In those
Right.
channels. And that we're that superfluid soup. And like, the example of superfluidity, that fluid in a container, and when it turned into a superfluid, it began to leak because there was no viscosity. So that understanding of space-time being a superfluid, superconductive, I think that's what, Tesla was trying to help us understand as well, and other amazing thinkers. Even I talk about, the water science, and that how there's more, biomagnetism versus bioelectricity. There's more energy of being pulled into the center than the just, like, an integrative force, and that would be the science of pronoia, that the universe is always conspiring in our benefit because there's more coherence into the field naturally of how life is coming into being. So yeah, that's again where coherence is more powerful, but there is that dynamic of spin and that double torus, that feedback technology or that feedback reality of the black hole with its hairs calm, the solution to Einstein field equations that Elizabeth created. Because right now, the quantum physics doesn't even know the source of spin, right? So that's a real hole there. And so that's where I think the Herrmann-Rauscher is so important to understand that source of spin, to have those dynamics totally fleshed out in terms of fluid dynamics. It's a magneto-hydrodynamics, because as soon as you have spin, you have polarity. So the electromagnetic field and the gravity bound, singularities that make up the physical world. So that to be able to kind of technically bring that into the biological realm, I think is that how we're made up of this Akashic field, and then how we have access to the past. This idea of retrocausality of being able to have the future influence the past influence the future. I think it's fluid in that way. And again, I really like the visualization where reality is real half the time. That at the nanoscale, we're blinking in and out of this ether. All our information is blinking in and out and coming out into this physical realm. But as where the masters could have created a body in another space-time coordinate, because they could just transfer their information into that coordinate, and the next moment it blinks in and then blinks
Right.
out. So
Right.
and that topology of feedback feed forward is also, I think, the link to consciousness, to be able to have a system learn about itself.
Right.
And that there's panpsychism, and the idea that there's consciousness all the way down. So I do love the implications of the physics for our understanding of consciousness as well. But of course, it's not the limitation of the material world and happening in our brain. So that's something that
Right.
I think
Well,
science is going to change.
I don't think there's a
Yeah.
person on this planet that could have answered that question more thoroughly than you just did. That was the most
Yeah.
thorough explanation of the Akashic field, the Akashic records, but it was wonderfully explained. And I love the way your mind works.
Very
I mean,
impressive.
it's like
Yeah.
it's all just here, just ready to go. You're just like waiting for someone to ask you about it. I love it. And
Well, I listened to Nassim's DVDs for years, or I mean, VHS. We have a VHS. My mom had a far infrared sauna and I had a little TV out, and I just listened to his stuff for years there. Just because, yeah, like I said, I feel like it's gonna be the liberating truth of humanity understanding how we're connected to the source of existence. Because I grew up Catholic, and understanding God as omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent, right? So again, that omniscience of the field, that the field is aware of the input at every scale that's feeding in and feeding out, right? The field is aware of that at all scales, and every middle new moment, every new now, every new bliss, that the field's aware of every input at every scale and every new moment, right? And then what's present everywhere, the field, the vacuum, the space-time, space memory field, the Akashic records, that we're made out of that, and every singularity has access to the whole. So those implications, I think, again, I love to be able to visualize. I like also to kind of clear up some of the confusion of quantum physics, of this uncertainty principle and things like that. Like I think that the way they're able to now draw out those mechanics of the coherence in the water and how it's happening, at the small scale into the large, is gonna, give us access through our body temple.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Breathtaking, groundbreaking,
And
groundbreaking
breathtaking.
stuff here, and breathtaking. Yeah, but groundbreaking stuff. And I really am excited for You say you just launched a website and you're starting to start. This is your first interview. People don't know that listening. It's the first interview you've done, which is actually mind blowing in itself.
Yeah.
That you haven't
Impressive.
that you're not out there talking about this more, so we're very grateful for that, but maybe you can let our audience know, like, what you have on the horizon as far as, your website and what you plan on doing with this work.
So yeah, I've been pretty buried in my school deadlines, and I changed my dissertation topic several times, and so I'm under a deadline to get my dissertation published, and so I don't have much time for much else. I mean, I've done some talks over the years, like 2011, and 2015 was the last time I did my recital of the Hafez poems, and I refreshed a little bit for my residence talk. I just recited 5 of them, but I just haven't been able to, focus on much else. But I did narrow down my dissertation study to magnetoreception and ESP, and I really believe that, our extrasensory perception is our most important perception, perhaps, and happening unconsciously. Both consciously and unconsciously in our holistic nervous system function. And again, wanted to be able to have a topic where I could bring in, the reality of the physics and the magnetic the magnetic field of the heart. So I do have Roland McCready, like I said, is my external committee member, and Dean Radin is my internal committee member, and they're both just incredible researchers. So I just feel so blessed for that. And then, of course, just being able to bring in Nissim's physics and some of the other, information systems and ideas there. So what I said in my residence talk, it really can just be like Dean said, okay, that's good for your lit review. And then, when I was coming up with my decision, then what are you going to do? So my unique contribution is going to be looking at our sensing of magnetic fields, which I believe that we do. But magnetoreception has been mostly for navigating species, and hasn't really been seen as a human ability. But I definitely believe it is. And, though we might use it more unconsciously, the implications of sensing people's heart fields, and that magnetic information, I think is where I want to go with that. And then, so I'm just getting my research, my equipment to do my study here on the island. So yeah, if anyone's here and wants to be a participant, otherwise, yeah, I just started my website to be able to, take in some donations for my research would be great. I definitely would love to come across a benefactor to help, to help me make this successful in the next year. And then, my goal then is to bring Jedi skills to kids, of just to develop I have a lot of amazing friends over the years, and just to bring the team together of all of our skills to be able to bring families and children to develop this awareness, this holistic cosmology, and the implications for our body. And my idea for that group right now is called the Harmony Project, because again, harmony at all scales, it's all, like Tesla said it, understand the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration, and that, the harmony of that. And I'm also a Jinshin Jutsu practitioner, which is a body work where they call your hands jumper cable. So this circuitry, and when you do this session, you're listening for harmony that happens in the movement of the energy, and then harmony in our emotions, harmony between our relations. So I just feel like, harmony, in every way is just so important. So that my idea is the Harmony Project. So my website is harmonyproject.us, and it's just super basic right now because I'm really not out there. Once I get my dissertation published, I'm going to turn it into a book, kind of my journey with the field, and like the physics of prayer and the power of our influence in the field and our psychic abilities, which is what transpersonal psychology is. So I've had a long journey of my master's. I did a lot of counseling and different kinds of therapy and that. And then I was working on a PhD in clinical psychology when I was working with profoundly gifted kids, because they needed the advocacy for intelligence tests. And I was living on the Big Island, and I had to do a practicum of 10 mental health assessments with children. And I didn't like it. I didn't like what the psychiatrist had said before. And, and kind of like, I loved the time I had with the children and the testing, but it just felt really limited. So I ended up not wanting to be a clinical psychologist, and I waited many years. I was actually up at a conference that Laura presented at in Shasta, and this man, Ted Marr, was offering sessions. He talks with our ancestors. So I got a session, and my grandma came through, and she's like, finish your PhD, don't get distracted. In 2015. So then I was like, well, I was referred to this one school, and said, do that, so I didn't even research anything. And I called CIS and found out they were starting a distance learning PhD in integral and transpersonal psychology. So when I started that, I've just, been grateful and been kind of buried in all the work. So I look forward to, getting it done, and then to be out there more and speaking. And even then I actually, when I did my recital of my 99 Hafez in 2015, I just found the DVD of that. So I'm hopefully going to be able to figure out how to get that up on my website. But right now I just have my residence talk. I have the event that I'll be speaking at with you guys, which I'm really excited about. And it's just sort of the basics, but yeah, I'm happy to connect with anyone. I, have, some essays that I've written about my research and kind of how it represents the integral worldview, and yeah, I'm open to all collaboration to be able to write the lit review and everything that I can, and yeah, would love to come across a benefactor, someone who really believes in my work, and any donations that people give just to help me make it through this. I don't really have any offerings right now because I'm just so buried in my deadline. But after I get through this, then I definitely look forward to putting myself out there more.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all that. And Aaron, did you have any last words or final thoughts that you wanted to go
Just
over?
thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been incredible. You're an amazing human being. You're doing phenomenal work. Just keep it up. And yeah, this has been so amazing, and can't wait to see you in Hawaii in April.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yep.
Yeah, nice meeting you
Yeah, it's
on
so
the
great
video.
meeting you. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. This has been, you're a wealth of knowledge, and this is fantastic.
Mhm.
And there's a lot. You say you packed a lot of information into your 29-minute resonance talk, but I mean,
Yeah.
you packed about 4 hours worth of information into this one
Yeah.
hour interview. So,
And it was like there was so many things in there. I'm like, you could do an entire
right.
we could do a whole show on that, on that, on
Right.
that.
But I
Yeah.
mean, exactly. And there's so many things that I would have liked to even ask about along the way, but I just let the conversation flow wherever it was supposed
Mhm.
to go. And I think it was wonderful. And I mean, you really devoted and dedicated to this stuff, and that's apparent. So there's no way that you can go wrong. I think that you'll find exactly what you're looking for in any donations or whatever, because you're doing it all for the right reasons, and I think you can't go wrong doing that. So this has been a pleasure having you. We cannot wait to see you on the Big Island. And anyone who wants to come, those tickets are available on our website at journeytotruth.online. And we cannot wait to see you out there. And any final words, Kara, before we wrap this up?
Oh, yeah, I'm grateful to get to talk to you guys. Resonant Kin is so exciting, and I started memorizing Hafez just because well, I said they started memorizing me by just the help to cope with my life and those higher mystical perspectives of seeing the beloved everywhere, and my recital of those, I've just gotten such great feedback because actually when I first did it at that conference, the man who was in the room who was videoing, in the end, he said that my recital of Hafez was his favorite of all 5 days of everyone's talk. I think because that mystic wisdom just really kind of that meaning grabs you, I mean, I've read the books Daniel Ladinsky, so but that mystic kind of poetry is sort of my passion, that bridging of that, So I'm hoping after I graduate, one thing that I wanted to do was like do a recital of Hafez and do like a commentary, and so that like I recite a poem and then, do a commentary of the physics or the psychological kind of meaning of that. So that's definitely an offering I want
Well,
to put together in the future.
how about you leave us with one of those poems, if one of your
Oh, sure.
favorite ones, a short one or
Oh my
something?
gosh, there's so many, but I was just thinking when I said the kinship. So there's one that's I got kin.
Okay.
That's the title. I got kin. Plant so that your heart will grow. Love so God will think, ah, I got kin in that body. I should start inviting that soul over for coffee and rolls. Sing because this is a food our starving world needs. Laugh because that is the purest sound.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
That is beautiful.
And
That's
there
amazing.
is, it's you can feel it. It's encoded with so much wisdom. Like it's a picture is worth 1,000 words type of energy, right? Like it
Yeah,
has that same
exactly.
energy. I love that. That was beautiful.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. And the harmonyproject.us, that's the
Yep.
website, right? Okay.
Harmonyproject.us. Yeah.
All right, we'll put that in the description below. And thank you so much for joining us. This has been fascinating. And like I said, can't wait to see you out on the Big Island. And good night, everybody. We love you. And until next time, have a great evening.
Thank you.
Hey guys, Journey to Truth is going to Hawaii. Join us in 2026 for Journey to Truth's first ever vacation conference on the Big Island at the beautiful Queen Emma Community Center in Kona. Enjoy Hawaii as we travel to sacred sites and connect with our Lemurian past and reactivate the land. It's time to get our bodies moving and take a boots-on-the-ground approach to the awakening. We'll also be making a trip to Volcano National Park to pay our respect to Pele, the goddess of fire. We'll then journey to the water for an ocean adventure with our multi-dimensional aquatic family. We'll gear up and head to the harbor as we set sail under the sun for an activating day on the water while we experience the Hawaiian ocean life like never before. Enjoy Hawaiian sunsets and walks on the beach while connecting with Soul Family and learning a few things from our amazing lineup of speakers. Aloha! Grab your ticket today at journeytotruth.online and join us for this once-in-a-lifetime activating getaway.